Sorry, I'm late.
All good.
Hey guys.
Can you hear me?
You're a
Yep.
bit frozen.
Yeah, I'd say I'm using my old computer, so I can't see you. Given I've joined late, we might get into it. I just saw a note that we had an investor dinner last week, but it feels so long ago. But it was only last Wednesday.
Was that really last week? Wow. You're right. Yeah, so we had an investor dinner last week, and that was epic. That was such a great night, catching up with everyone and meeting a whole heap of new faces as well. And it was a really good conversation around how do we help grow the Queensland ecosystem, because there was a ton of knowledge and expertise in that room.
You missed a good night, Ash and Jack.
Next time.
Definitely have to get you there next time.
Yeah, well, we had some of our LPs in the room that have backed us, and I must admit, when Peter Seidel and his wife Llewellyn were there, and Peter talked about why he was involved in Tribe, but I don't think those people realise those kinds of words and that confidence they have in you give you a bit of a shot to keep doing what you're doing, especially during difficult times, raising a fund and whatever else. Incredible family that's helped us, along with all of ours. Yeah,
there was a lot of love in the room, and yeah, that sentiment of the kind words that were expressed, and definitely felt by Don and I. I think we had a little tear in there somewhere, hearing the positivity in the room and the reflections on Tribe and why they back Tribe. So that was just phenomenal. And moments like that really drive us. I've talked about this before, but just when you have really good people backing you and putting their hard-earned dollars into your hands with a lot of trust, it does really drive you to make sure that you get those returns for those investors and for the shareholders. So appreciate all the support that they give so generously, not just in capital, but in time and advice and connections and introductions.
but there's always, with all these events, it's like, where's Jack? And it's just, what about us?
Yeah, no one comes to any of these events to see Don or I. It's all, where's Jack? We haven't seen Jack in a while. What's Jack up to? How's Jack's pub? Is Jack coming to Brisbane anytime soon?
And if you
I honestly think everyone just loves Jack. It's even here. They're like, "Oh, how's Jack?" And I'm like, "Cool. Yep." Yes. It's just yeah. I'm just a method to update people on Jack and Louie.
Hey, the two of you are the only reason we have a podcast that people listen to. So, thank you.
what's the lesson for founders?
Have some talent on your team.
So quiet the last 2 episodes. I'm expecting more out of you.
Come on.
I've got nothing here, but I promise, I'll try and contribute a bit more this app.
And we've got Lauren Hall from Ivy on the 19th of June. Been great to see a lot of regos coming through after we launched that. Looking forward to that at Mix.
Yeah, always a great event at Mix Farm, and this one I think in particular is going to be great. And yeah, we've invited a fair few, and so far with the uptake, I'm a little bit worried maybe we've overcommitted at Mix, but it should be a great night. And that reminds me, sorry, Amy, I need to get back to you about catering for that one on Mix Team. So it'll happen fast when we get back from the UK, though. We'll be straight into that event.
It's been alleged, Aaron, that we fly out tomorrow.
I go tonight, so I am taking off in 10 hours, and at this moment I am not packed.
But yeah, Don, we've got a question for you. Have you packed yet?
Mate, it was only until I was talking to Aaron like 20 minutes ago that he reminded that we were flying out. I haven't done anything.
And that confirms our beliefs.
And the problem is it's my brother's 40th, which is why I'm not going with Aaron. And it's on a boat. So I've got to take all my gear on a boat and then somehow 3 hours prior find somewhere on the river to be let off so I can get an Uber to get to the airport with all my gear. So
Don is not making this flight. I hope you realize that.
Don't say that, Ash.
No, but the funny thing is, so last year he had his sister's 40th, which was at his house, and then he was claiming he was going to come to the airport in the tuxedo and get on the plane. So I think we just always seem to time it well, Don.
Don pulls it off. He'll be there. The gear might not be, but he'll be there.
So Jack, because I didn't want to fly in the tux, I don't know if I ever told you, but I got changed into some clothes before getting the Uber to the airport, but it also included changing my shoes. But I didn't realize that I'd stepped in like the most amount of dog shit you've ever seen, and I stored everything in my sister-in-law's car. So for the whole night, the shoes and stuff festered while I flew out, and then they went back the next day later because they left the car there in the sun. So dog poo infused shoes had just been baking the whole time, and they were not impressed with me.
I have so many questions.
I had forgotten that story. Oh,
The lesson for founders is
But the thing that pissed me off,
don't
right, is
invite Don to your party.
it's supposed to take a village and you're supposed to be in it together. All they did was put the shoes in a plastic bag, and 2 weeks later, I still had shitty shoes. They didn't even clean them for me or anything. I mean, I find that
I just would have
That's the
thrown
big
your
one.
shoes out. Like I wouldn't have even stored them. I just would have.
yeah, your generation, you got too much.
I love that
Yeah.
becomes a generational thing.
Yeah. I feel like that's a bit extreme.
It's got too much money, you waste everything.
I
You
wish
put
you
it,
all the best of luck getting off a boat to make it to the airport. I am not checking my tribe messages tonight. I'm putting it on mute. I do not want to be having anxiety for the rest of the evening for you.
no, it'll work out all right because I land at 12:22 in London on Sunday, and we kick off at 4 p.m. So there's a couple of hours buffer for me to get from the airport, and then we start with the new crew.
We actually start at 2, but the drinks start at 4 p.m.
So that's when Dom starts. Oh, Lord.
All
Anyway,
right,
so
let's-
you guys having a good time without a chaperone. This makes me so nervous that you two are the chaperones.
We pull it off time and time again.
It's all Marin. Yeah.
I think that's the thanks, really.
You got it, Ash. It's all Marin.
That is true. Aaron is the adult on the ground, and then Maren behind the scenes. And it is an excellent shout out, Ash. Maren gives up her evenings, obviously with the time zone, for a whole week to help with a whole lot of stuff. So thank you, Maren.
Yes. Makes us look good. Or at least makes us not look too bad.
Let's segue. Who doesn't look good? That's a strong room AI. So just as a quick update there, this thing has some twist and turns. So it sounds like it was about to get a docker was about to get up, a deed of company arrangement, where the liquidator was going to do a deal to effectively sell the assets, which would mean that there wouldn't be recourse for other secured creditors. But EVP managed to get a court order on Wednesday night, which actually formally recognized them as a $10 million creditor, giving it substantial weight in the debt-weighted vote. Now, a source who attended the creditors' meeting, speaking in condition of anonymity, said tensions ran high when Strongroom CEO's Max Minto's father made an emotional plea to protect the company's staff and technology. The source said EVP's legal representatives responded by blaming Minto for the company's collapse in the first place. Now, the reason why EVP wants to go down the liquidation path is they believe that they can get a better outcome because they are going to go the founders. And Ash and Jack, there was a movie a little while ago called Terminator. You won't have seen it or know about it, but it's about an entity that doesn't give up and can't be negotiated with. I have a feeling this is going to be EVP on behalf of its LPs, and quite rightly so.
I would like to clarify, I did know the movie, but I have not seen it.
You missed out. But well done, EVP. I mean, to get recognised as a creditor is a great outcome for the fund and ultimately their LPs.
Watch this space. I think it's one that we're all going to learn from. I put this under recap, and it's probably a little bit weird, but just hang with me. Don't need those facial expressions, Ash. So Chris Gillings from Cut Through Venture and 5V messaged me, I think on Friday or Thursday. I think he had listened to the episode where I'd supported the claim that I think 20 years from now, a lot of humans are going to have AI partners, not human partners. But he messaged me this movie on Amazon called Companion. I really recommend you watch it because I think it's exactly what's going to happen, because the tech is getting close there right now, but it's effectively people with robot companions that can then be programmed to kill people. I found part of it funny, part of it scary, part of it whatever, but the tech is coming. Have you seen some of the even more impressive photorealism stuff that's coming out, like this one here? And this is why I guess I'm so far in this camp. Like, I won't do the sounds, but I don't know. Can you tell that this is AI in any way?
Yeah.
How?
It just
What gives
like
it away? I mean, I'm interested. Like, I'm just like,
lips.
what? The lips. Okay.
To me.
The lighting and
Yeah.
the sunlight through the hair is pretty phenomenal in that last scene.
I'm like,
Anyway,
yeah, it's too perfect.
On that point, Ash, it seems as real as most of the stuff on Instagram.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen some pretty funny looking lips on the internet.
I didn't mean it that way, Jack. It's like it's being dubbed. So like I'm someone that like immediately you turn a show on, I'm like, that's dubbed. So I like it just feels a little
Jack, you don't say much.
Jack's in a quality. Some lessons for founders are don't spend money on lips.
The thing for me is that it's getting so realistic. I'm not saying that they're all psychopaths, but when you look at some of the people that are doing this stuff, they're not demonstrating a lot of empathy for what's going to happen, I don't think. This little video, just 2 seconds.
Things are going to change a lot, and we try to be super upfront about this and super open about it. Part of the reason that we try to release the technology, even in this imperfect state, is that we all think at the company it's really important that the whole world get a sense of what's happening. Many people in the field have advocated that this should be developed more in secret. And there are reasons for that. I don't want to totally dismiss it from a safety perspective. But this is going to be such a massive change to so many aspects of society that we need the world as a whole, as many people as we can, to understand this, to weigh in on it, for people and institutions to have time to think about this, to understand it, to really feel it, and gradually update and decide how we all want to move forward. What a global regulatory framework should be like, what the social norms are going to be, how we want to use this. And I think there are going to be scary times ahead, and there's going to be a lot of transition. I'm very confident this can be managed. I think the more we can all do it together, the more likely we'll get something that works for all of us. But it does mean we have to confront what I think will be one of the biggest technological changes we've ever had to confront.
I get that whole thing scares the shit out of me. It's we know all these things are going to happen, and I don't want to dismiss those other things, but I don't know, it's scary.
There is something about, I don't know how to put this, but something about him saying all those things that are going to affect billions of people, and the way he delivers that. I don't know. I don't want to say arrogant, but there is a, I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. And then back to the Terminator reference. I wonder if he's being visited by anyone from the future that's trying to kill him to make sure that this doesn't happen.
But yeah, the thing about Altman, if it's not him, it's someone else. And if it's not America, it's another country. Like, it's inevitable that it's going to happen.
Yeah, and there is something in his
That's
point
true,
about
but
release early.
But he talks about regulation, and I'm not a full-blown regulate everything, but I'm also not a let's go full anarchy. But he talks about deciding on a global regulation framework. I'll just play this from Jon Stewart, and keeping in mind that it's tech lobbyists that choose what goes into these bills.
Big, beautiful bill. There is a section that says for the next 10 years, they are not allowed to legislate or regulate AI in any way, shape, or form. It is prohibited by an act of Congress if this goes through. What does that do to this? It gives them a 10-year head start on whatever it is they want to do with it?
It is the technocratic dream. This is what these tech bros want. They want to just build their beautiful AIs and do whatever they want in any way that they want, so that they can get to Mars and colonize it. Great, glorious goals such as...
So how does any of this square with their so-called libertarian principles?
So that, I didn't realize that was happening. So I went and double checked. And in this big bill that's causing Trump and Elon to fall out, there is this decade-long provision that is actually going to legislate no regs. So we're going to have people that are already sociopathic, often on the spectrum with fuck all empathy, deciding what happens to big chunks of humanity. It just feels a bit out of kilter.
Yeah, it does. One of our regular listeners, Spidey, shared with me a large language model that has no rules, no filters in what you can ask it or what you want it to teach you. And yeah, that's been created pretty easily, right? It is scary, even if there were rules, how easy it is for them to be broken. But I wonder if this is purely a play by the US government to attract all of the AI talent into the country. If they're basically saying we won't regulate this space, is that their mechanism to hoover up talent? I just think it's so dangerous.
Find it interesting you haven't shared the details of this with anyone on the team.
I couldn't even bring myself to name it on the podcast, but if you would like to know, I could share that in the group chat.
No, I'm good.
No, probably best not.
It does bring up a lot of interesting points though, Don, and I am almost finished a recent Diary of a CEO, Simon Sinek conversation. Recommend that you guys listen to that on the plane, and we chat about it next week on the potty as well, because it's very relevant to this space, and off the back of a number of the podcasts that we've all listened to over the past few weeks about the revolution that this will have on society, but also the skill sets that will be required. It's a very interesting lens given his role as an author, his role as a thought leader. Yeah, so I won't say too much because I think it'll be a good discussion point, but very much ties in with this legislative conversation.
Yeah, cool. I'll have a look at it. And this is the challenge of this whole big tech, and we're investors trying to invest in great things that can deliver returns, but there is always a regulatory sort of balance. And so with what's occurring, a lot of people talk about rights, but I think for a lot of humans though, they don't either understand it or they don't care. And I think for a lot of people, they don't care. And I came across this when they were talking about decreasing people's rights with AI. Just hold on.
People don't care. They don't want these rights. They actually don't. Most people don't give a shit about their rights. They want pizza. They want chicken wings. They want fucking soda. They want cheap credit. They want to go on a cruise once a year. They don't give a shit about their rights. They don't care. They want Netflix and they want garlic knots. And that's and that's what it is. They just enjoy like putting something warm and doughy in their mouth, vegging out, and fucking waking up the next day and go, shit, I'm here again. And they're the happiest people.
They like to get drunk and go boating.
That's it. They like to get fucked up and go out on the lake. Go out on the lake and get railed up. And yeah, and it's fun. What are you going to sit around all day, worry about what DARPA's doing? It's like, the fuck kind of life is that?
I think he's probably right. The happiest people are the ones that just live life and aren't worrying about this stuff. But the problem is with what's happening, if people don't actually understand what's coming, once the genie's out of the box, I don't think it's coming back.
Look, in the future, getting effed up and going out on the lake might be the only thing we have left to do. But I think it's true. Like with the point of that, self-interest, short-termism overrides any concept of almost anything else nowadays. It is a bit sad.
Now, companies are going to navigate all this, and they're going to have to implement tools and different bits and pieces. And the listeners probably know that Ash is part-time with Tribe just because of where we're at in the life cycle. But Ash, you have launched something new that I think is going to be helpful. So why don't you tell the listeners about it?
Oh, didn't see this on the schedule. Yeah, I have launched a AI consulting business targeting small and medium enterprise. So really looking at the segment of the market that can have a lot of efficiency gain and productivity gain by leveraging different AI tools. And not just AI, it's really a mixture of AI and automations is really what we are targeting and going after. And there's a lot of great synergies between what we're doing at Tribe, what we're seeing in our portfolio companies. And even just this week, I think Jack and I have been on the phone 3 or 4 times just talking about different things we're seeing and doing. And also from a tech DD perspective as well, looking at how the portfolio companies that we have, but also the ones we're looking at from a deal flow perspective, how they're thinking about their build and also hearing what I'm hearing at an enterprise level, but also interestingly enough, kind of in this small and medium-sized market where I'm going after B2B space, which is obviously where we play. So yeah, it's a really exciting time to be working in AI, but also the mix of AI and VC, I think is, I'm really excited and really happy to have the opportunity to have both and to have all of you support me on that journey. And yeah, just see where it goes and more conversations about AI to come. So apologies for the listeners who aren't interested in AI. They're just here for dumb shots. That's all I got.
Actually, Mark from IFL, great supporter of Tribe and a listener of the podcast. Again, Ash reiterated to you directly that if charts are not
I'm
included,
aware. Yeah.
if charts are not included, it's all over. So these aren't my words.
Yeah, definitely off my Christmas card list. Thought I had wrangled out of that one, but no, it's good. It's good to know that certain listeners enjoy them.
What I'm excited about is that I think you're just going to, being on the cold faces of all this stuff, the second stuff comes out, we've got someone on the team that's going to be understanding it, it's going to be implementing it, is going to be at the cold face, is going to be there knowing what works, what doesn't. And so I'm really excited that that's going to flow back to us and the portfolio. But yeah, for those that need a hand or want to look at any of those things, Ash is really well placed to assist. Another piece of industry news is there's a new secondary fund called SecondQuater, and it's a fund that's been set up, and they're going to be trying to tap super funds to step up and fill the liquidity void. Australia's nascent venture capital secondary market is at a crossroads, with demand for liquidity from employees and early investors seeking to cash in far outstripping the supply. That's the message from Ian Beattie, managing partner at dedicated secondary investor SecondQuater, who said the mismatch between supply and demand could be solved if more institutional investors step up and fill the void. SecondQuater's portfolio includes stakes in most of the big names like Canva, Airwallex, CultureAmp. It's brought on a new partner, David Moss, and has plans to raise another fund on the horizon. Did you see that? I think was it last week or the week before we talked about a secondaries fund, but that was targeting LP positions. This is targeting liquidity for employees and stuff. I think this is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's great to see another fund being set up, creating more liquidity in the market. This got talked about a lot this week with different accelerator programs that I was in contact with and speaking to. So a great outcome.
Which I think that's going to solve a pain point in the market. But I think this next one, Ash, it was you who found it originally. It was a chart. And at the time I felt a little bit attacked because it was like a proper chart. But it shows trouble for new VCs. So this is PitchBook data. And the heading is, emerging managers are on track to raise less money this year than they have in a decade. Good to be an emerging manager. But that, for listeners at home, it was rising from 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, a little bit flat in 18, came up a bit in 19, and then has just had a massive jump, obviously, in COVID. But now we're not even half what we were back then. But when you add up those bars, like the maths, the way I look at it is we're still just washing through the demand that was pulled forward in COVID. So when I look at this, I say, yeah, I'm probably still not surprised. And B, it's just going to wash out the people that are here for tourism rather than seeking to actually build a real fund.
Yeah, I agree. And I shared it with that lens, but I think also with the lens of the investor dinner last week. So although Jack and I went there, Don and Aaron were able to share some videos of certain people speaking about Tribe. And I got emotional even just being the newest person on the team of why they are part of not just Tribe as investors, but part of our broader network of literally people who are pulling together dinners to help us on our journey. And I think it was a moment of reflection in terms of articulating why being part of this team and being an emerging manager is so bloody hard, but also that we're doing it for all the right reasons. And we have so many people who are experienced and smarter than us backing us. And it's if they see what we see in ourselves, but willing to put their own money behind us as well, like we're doing something that's worth pursuing. And so I shared the graph knowing that we know this is hard. We are not living under a rock. We are not thinking that we are just going to be able to cruise and find this capital. We know we're going to have to work really hard and articulate the narrative really well and demonstrate what we've learned from the past kind of almost 4 years of Tribe being in operation. But I back that, and I back the path that we're on. And I think, yeah, just highlighting to our listeners that, yeah, we're aware this is hard, but we're still here showing up every day, every week to push this journey forward.
Yeah, I love that, Ash. Yeah, my 2 cents from looking at the graph, like what it's missing and what would be great to overlay is actually the historical performance of funds. And like I always go back to a good time to raise is a bad time to deploy, vice versa. And the reality is, and it applies for fund managers and startups themselves, regardless of the market cycle, good deals or good fund managers are going to raise. So I think like it always just goes back to, I would rather be in this position versus raising a vintage in 2021 and having to deploy at multiples that are just absolutely stupid. And therefore we've just totally screwed our first fund. So I think like it is going to be harder to square away the raise, but I would rather that when we're deploying at a much easier time.
Totally agree with you, Jack. I think to successfully get a fund away now in terms of where we need to be with our thesis, with our team, with our pitch and messaging, and with our focus, like that challenge of that and the difficulty of that will ultimately make us better investors. Like it is in some ways a reward for being good, but also we know this is a long feedback loop. And so to be successfully raising at the moment is a high bar to get that done, but it's going to make us better for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain out there for 2020 and 2021 companies. And this week I was involved in something where the 2020-2021 vintage VC only has one cracker in their portfolio. The company's now moving into Series B. As what always happens at Series B, the seed investors have to give up their board seat to make way. We believe that smaller boards of competent people are better. And now there's this conflict of interest because that fund doesn't want to hand over that because they want the marketing stuff because they don't have anything else to leverage. And so now the poor founder is stuck between this situation. And then we know that another one is closing down and sending money back to investors, and they've just run out of puff. So whilst not easy, I would rather be doing it now, to echo Jack's points, because that's always where the good things get created.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a takeaway for founders, but I think it's just a good reminder that given we're on the other side, we're still in the same boat, and like times are tough. We're feeling the exact same pain you are going out to market, doing the raise and feeling like you're getting punched in the face 1,000 times. So just know that we're in the same boat.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to some commentary around what we shared in the last episode about how we give a pitch structure and we ask founders to pitch to us in a certain way. And that does come from the fact that we internally sell every deal to investors, and with the syndication model, that is one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat of repitching your venture for you. And so the way we approach things is very much built by our own experience of having to pitch to investors.
Yeah, I was literally about to say, Aaron, I was like, if anything, we probably have it slightly harder, where we are not only pitching ourselves, but we're pitching every deal, which means our feedback loop is extremely high.
What venture capital is required for is scaling. And I saw this little video that I think really aligns with our view. Simon Thompson from Startup Daily has a new podcast. I don't know if you've seen it, and they've been putting some shorts out. But I thought this little short was really good. Okay, I've stuffed this up. Hold on. It's the wrong bloody link. So I'm just going to have to tell you what was said. But the definition was, you're not scaling unless your revenues are growing faster than your expenses. And I think that is a really good way to put it, because a lot of companies out there talk about scaling.
Wait, Don, you're breaking up for me. Did anyone else get that?
Yeah, I've actually lost Don. Have you guys lost him?
I
Yeah.
think he's frozen.
I've lost him completely.
I'm back.
Hey, Don, it's clearer as well.
I didn't realize it connected to my phone, not the network. So I've been running.
So as long as you click record, Don, I don't care.
Well, speaking of clicking record, Aaron, I don't know if you saw, but Chris Milligan's episode went live.
Hey! Oh, just in time for us
I
to see
wasn't
him.
going to fly to London. And go see one of our biggest supporters, venture partners, investors,
Shareholder,
investor,
good mate.
and sit in front of him and say, it's still not uploaded. So,
Has that been almost like 12 months?
Ash, don't embarrass me in front of my friends.
I think longer.
Wait, are we the friends? Oh, okay.
The issue was there needed to be some editing.
Okay.
But then life got in the way. And then once I'd done the editing, it lost a bit of context. So I said to Aaron, we need to record an intro. So we recorded an intro, but there was an awful echo. And then life got in the way. So then while we were in San Francisco last time, so that's March, we're now in June, I said, we must do this right now. So we recorded the intro. And then it's just been on the to-do list. Obviously, all of Ash's other requirements have been like taking precedent. And I've been having to get all of those.
You have no idea the to-do list is about to come your way, mate.
So let's get back on track. So what was being said, and I'll put it in there, you're not scaling unless you're able to grow your revenue faster than your expenses. And I think that is a good way to put it, because so often people think they're scaling, but anyone can scale expenses. And there's a whole lot of things that in that environment, what tends to happen is you miss the fact that you don't have product market fit. And I think what happened with a lot of these venture capital funds that raise money, especially emerging managers, and the reason why there's a lot of pain being felt now, because a lot of 2021, early 22 money went into scaling in inverted commas, but they weren't actually scaling. They were just incinerating capital.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Don. And I think I hold a belief for a founder to be Series A ready, even if it's just a founder-led sales, you've got to have a sales process that's at least giving you early signals that it's repeatable, reliable, and efficient. Because you don't want to be in the situation where you don't have a sales motion that's repeatable and you're hiring a heap of staff to try and go and find that for you. So it's much less riskier from our point of view, even if you can only do it on a one person scale, and that's the founder.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And that's where we constantly get deals, and sometimes we not upset, but when we've been referred a deal by a trusted investor, but when you don't want to proceed, there's always a little bit of uncomfortableness there because they're going and we're not. But often we just look at that sales machine hasn't been built, that marketing machine hasn't been built. They haven't learned how to actually do that, and it's very expensive to do it. And there's lots of opportunities where the founders have actually found some of that scalability. And in a world where our thesis is partly around a smaller number of investors, but with higher levels of support, we don't actually need to back every company that's trying to learn all that stuff from scratch, because statistically it's difficult.
And yeah, I think that's why I like your advice, Don, to founders. If you haven't found that, just raise a smaller quantum and then go and prove that, then come back out to market. And the reality is, if you do it right, you're probably going to dilute yourself less, and you're going to be able to come out to market and raise a bigger quantum easier.
Yep, less dilution, more money. If you get that right and you're able to demonstrate those ingredients, it always works out better.
That was like one of the convos this week, Jack, one of the pitch calls, where a founder was raising, I think it was only about 1.5 mil, but the VAL made it a significant component of the company, or a significant share of the company. And they were pushed there by an investor in the ecosystem had set the multiple. But they were so close to securing some big lift in contracted ARR. And so just raise a smaller quantum, get to that next milestone, and then go and raise the larger lick for what you need to do next. But I am nervous sometimes with, or not nervous, but just aware that sometimes it's actually the investors pushing the founders to be taking more capital and to do this. So I think for founders, just to have that little watch out. Like, what do you need to get to the next valuation inflection point where you can command a better valuation for the business?
I also think founders need to be a bit more crafty and try to find non-dilutive capital. Like, there are grants coming out left, right, and center in Australia at the moment. And if you do not have your finger on the pulse of how you can potentially activate a state-led one, a federal-led one, a specific industry vertical, and you get on a pitch call with us and we ask you if you've looked into grants and you haven't, to me, that tells you something about your crafty and thriftiness to demonstrate how you can bootstrap your business or have non-dilutive capital to get further faster without having to then burn VC capital. I think there's a lot of interesting grants coming to the forefront in Australia right now, and I think founders should be on their toes looking at how they can tap into that.
Yeah, I agree. I stopped in at Brisbane Angels on whatever night it was, and then just stayed for a little bit for the dinner and sat down, and there was a founder who just pitched, and by the time I'd got there, I think it must have been an open bar because it was a little rowdier than usual. And then this person started with, I'm here for angel money for this. I can't stand VCs, and just went off on this thing on VC. And I said, no, I agree with you. The majority of people that raise capital from VC shouldn't, or they do it at the wrong stage. And what I don't want is, I don't want a company that's getting to Series B and the founder doesn't control it. We're backing founders, and when investors actually have control, investors are not that clever or rational or whatever else. And if a founder can't actually implement their vision and do those things, then that's a problem. And if you've given away too much of the company too early, that's a bad thing. Now, part of why you raise capital is to scale, and scaling requires a range of things like a scalable marketing and sales engine. But you need to delegate, at least in my opinion. Mark Zuckerberg, however, says otherwise.
Basically don't believe in delegation. I think that there's this theory that a lot of people have, which is like, all right, the job of a leader is you hire people and you delegate things to them. My theory is there's so much going on across the company that I can't possibly get involved in all of it. So all these people are going to have a ton of stuff that they're going to do. But fundamentally, if there's a decision that I want to be involved with, I'm going to be involved in it. I don't believe in delegating. Like and I think that that's generally a good way for founders to operate. I think it's, if you're running the company and you're on the hook for everything, and there's something that's important at whatever level of detail in the organization, I don't get like the logic of saying I'm not going to be involved in that.
Chatting to someone who used to work very closely with Zuck, he shared some insights a while back about Zuck's style. And the way he described it was, Mark was very much across almost everything, but wouldn't directly tell his direct reports what to do. He would express things as, I'm concerned about, or I'm thinking about this, or how do we leverage this? And that was the guiding thing that then went down the delegation chain. So this is interesting. I always had this flavor of how Zuckerberg led Facebook based on things I'd heard before, whereas this is, I don't know, it's got a different vibe the way he's talking about it here.
He's conflating authority and process. What he's talking about there, I think, is that you have to delegate, but just because you delegate doesn't mean that you're not involved. And so with the reason I played that I connected with this video this week is that I had a 2-day strategy session with a portfolio company, and you've got strategy and you've got vision and you've got direction and all of that, but then you've got like the managerial process of the way things go. And to get a business off the ground, it's like a strong founding team that has energy, purpose, and direction. But then what happens is the business can't grow faster than those people's ability to make decisions. Now, the problem is that delegation without the right systems, processes, and controls is actually abdication, and abdication leads to bankruptcy. So I will bet you that actually Zuck has very good delegation, but what he's talking about is when should certain people be involved in certain decisions. And so the way I believe that like the best organizations run is that whoever's got the information, any level should be able to go and have the discussion with them. if the receptionist has some information, the CEO should be able to go down and talk to the receptionist and get that bit of information. Where it falls apart is when you start giving direction to everybody and you start jumping around that. And then one of the things we teach in the portfolio sessions that we do at Tribe is that too many people in a meeting, it's a nightmare. The wrong people in the meeting, a nightmare. Not enough people in the meeting, likely to be implementation failure. So we teach a little tool, it's called CAPI, C-A-P-I. C just means coalesce, bringing together. A is authority, P is for power, I is for influence. Authority, power, and influence. And so what that means is it traverses the organizational chart. And so you still have people with roles and responsibilities, and you still have authority, and you still have delegation. But if the CEO either has authority, power, influence, either because they're really knowledgeable about a certain thing, or they're really passionate, or they hold the authority still, then you want them involved. And what tends to happen is founders get shamed into, once you hire senior people, don't get involved in any of that stuff. So no, that's bullshit. But you've got to understand the difference between authority, information flow, questioning. And I think Zuck is just confusing a couple of things there, that his business would not work if he didn't have delegation. And I bet you with the size of Facebook, it's going to be pretty strong. But what he's got is a process that transcends the organizational chart, where the right people can be in there to give that decision energy. And I totally agree with that. But what he's describing there is not systemic. And that's where it tends to fall down and you can create chaos. Whereas if you have a systemic reason, like the CEO is going to be involved in this decision, it doesn't matter how small or big it is. I think it's totally appropriate. But founders get shamed into, you got to hire this person and then just let them do what they want. No, that doesn't work.
I have nothing except for the word coalesce gives me the heebie-jeebies.
What? Out of all of that, you don't like the word coalesce?
Nah, I like everything you said, but I really had to try to push my brain out of just staying at that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Female's viewpoint.
The coalescing. Just help me understand. What's the...
I don't know. Just
What, is it too close to caress? Like what direction are we going here?
I don't know. It just gives me like the ick.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we're going to have a new section of the podcast called Coalescing.
Coalescing charts. Oh.
That's what I do, Ash. At my waking moments, I coalesce. I bring together. Okay. I think delegation is required, but done properly. But you've also then got to get the right people in the right roles. And so delegation is around getting the right role and responsibility, the right authority, the right reward systems, the right goals and KPIs. Like when we talk about organizational structure, they're the 4 ingredients. Now, we also believe you can match people's styles to the role. So often what happens is you'll get them to do a range of different profiling tests to try and work out, is this person for this role and what are the attributes? But Jack, you found something and you shared it where Harry Ruck had posted, it's both amazing and scary when you realize how much the models already know about you. What Harry did was just go to ChatGPT and say, one shot my Myers-Briggs personality based on your memory of me. And Harry reckons it's absolutely nailed him without answering any questions, just what do you know about me based on my chat environment?
Yeah, so I saw that and I agree, like it actually scared me. So I put it into GBT and it picked mine straight away.
Oh my God, you just did it.
Yeah, did it get yours right, Ash?
I just went, what's my Myers-Briggs? Says, I don't know unless you've told me. And I was like, have a guess based on your memory.
Did it get it right?
Yep.
Yeah, because it got mine right. And I was like, I actually felt so weird. Like, it was such a weird feeling. And then I asked it and said, are you sure I've never told you what my Myers-Briggs is? And it said, no, you're classic ENTJ energy. That's so wild.
It nailed mine. And it also picked up that my E and I alternates. Like it went to that level of detail. And then I asked DISC and it nailed all of them.
Oh, it's interesting. So on me though, you're going to laugh at this, Ash. for my PAEI, it actually had me more structured than I think my team.
I did laugh at that in the show notes.
Yeah. So what happened was, because I then went back to it and said, no, that's not my style. And I'll read what it says. What makes you think I'm high A for administration? And it said, why I initially thought you were A for administration might be high was because you often talk about structure, like KPIs, frameworks, organizational roles, life cycles. You've created systems like Control Center, Founders Framework, and you reflect on order and clarity, and you focus on accountability and execution. So what's interesting, it had that is a really good answer. I am really interested in those and those frameworks and tools and teaching others, but that doesn't mean that that's my natural bias as my co-host's concept.
Do you know what comes to mind, Don? Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly, Jack. Thank you.
I've never done the PAEI questionnaire.
Yeah, and you don't even need to go to chat. What do you think I am?
There
are 3 people on this call that are happy to label you, Ash.
Okay, you can label me. Let's see.
I'm curious what chat said first.
Yeah, what did chat say?
EPI.
No, so this is where it's wrong. So as I put in the show notes, there is a lot of stuff out in the world about Myers-Briggs. So it's got a massive database to learn from. All of ESHAC stuff, 80 to 90% of it is still in books. And because just the way you design the institute, it's all behind a paywall as well. It's only if you go in there. So it actually, when I then started testing it, it has really no idea what PAI actually is. And it is, rather than doing it on observed behavior, it's doing it on points of interest. So Ash, you are very much interested in a lot of E-type entrepreneurial ideas, but your default is actually A: process, correctness, timeliness, systems, process. You said that you were going to have this ready. Where is it? But the AI hasn't been actually trained on that stuff. And I think it's just a really good lesson for us to be careful not to end up being a function of the reinforcement engineers and what they're interested in and what they've done. Now, what that gives me confidence with, Ash, is actually these AI tools that we're going to build for Tribe's portfolio are actually going to be of value, because a lot of the stuff I've been testing with chat is either not there, it doesn't have an answer, or the answer it gives is the total opposite that we would believe to be true. And therefore, I think we're going to have a strong value proposition.
Agreed. We just need to make sure we build it outside of the infrastructure.
Oh, outside of the
I thought you were having a crack. I thought you were about to say, I agree, but we're going to... I'm going to get there.
That was a good opportunity to do it.
I do find it interesting though, because I think I have many different modes. And so based on the team that I'm working in, I have a default based on what need I need to fill. So I think you probably see a different side.
I want to talk to your other teams, and I want to talk to your other half, because
we can arrange this. This will be hilarious. When you come to Adelaide, we need to have a dinner.
Oh no, we have to. That has to happen.
Yeah, July. Just put it in the diary. It's happening.
But that point around the data, like the data that it's basing these judgments off, is very much what we are searching. And often we're searching for the gaps that we have, or a knowledge gap, or some sort of interest. But this is where when AI starts interacting with other sources of data. So for example, if it had your webcam, if it actually tracked keystrokes, if it actually tracked conversations, if it actually tracked stuff's going to get pretty gnarly pretty quickly when other data sets that measure actual behavior. And then when we bridge the divide into thought, that'll be the game changer, that human computer interface.
Okay, but then you add robotics, and you've got this thing that knows you, knows what makes you happy, knows what makes you feel good, and its only programming role is to make you feel all of those things. That's why I think there's this doom loop that's going to occur where it's just such an easy hop, skip, and a jump. I really recommend you watch Companion. Like it's a document.
You need to listen to the Simon Sinek podcast. It's very interesting.
Nothing like...
Jack, Aaron, can you confirm what you consider me as?
You high A.
Yeah, I double down on that. But we need that, and that's what makes Drive a complementary team.
It's
Like, I think
what
when
we
you
were
put-
looking
when you
for,
put
Ash.
John and Ash together, that's a fully formed team, right? That is executing,
It's like
coming up with
matter-
the idea and producing.
Matter and antimatter coming together.
So, what is everyone's like? Are we all ENTJs?
No,
My E and I flip a bit.
my predominant is INTP, which a lot of people would reject.
What's yours, John? Again?
INTP,
INTP.
but I will flip to an E. So the majority of time I'm inside my head and contemplating my navel, and given a choice between a large crowd situation or contemplating something else, I'm going to go in. But you then have coping mechanisms that you develop in order to get out there and build a fund, as an example.
It's super interesting. So, Jack, we are a very rare breed, which is why when you said you were ENTJ before, I was like, I did not meet many ENTJs. So,
Really?
yeah, we make up 1.8% of the global population.
Speaking of probably ENTJs, but who really knows? Jack, do you still have the statue of Tim Doyle in your bedroom? Or have you... But he...
It doesn't say yes or no.
Tim Doyle, founder of Eucalyptus, I think we can all agree, excellent founder, high energy. Says the dumbest fight on LinkedIn is brand marketers versus performance marketers. And it's true, there's been brand marketing, performance marketing, but he's saying the war is over, you both lost. Brand marketers defending low accountability, low measurement, things like TV, whereas performance marketing, their biggest call is that it's all measurable, it's dominated by short-term video. The good news is that as long as you can acknowledge the internet, he says, then you'll both be staring into a new golden age, which is storytelling. The era of the grubby performance marketer bidding and arbing their way to dollars in the world's ugliest ads is over. The algorithms have replaced them. There's never been a worse time to be a non-creative channel specific media buyer. Can you tell stories that change people's minds? I think why I added that on there, just segueing out of AI and whatever else, I think whatever's left in this post world, it's human connection, it's stories, it's the ability for people to connect in that way. And I think it's right. It's like brand awareness and performance is giving way to algorithms in every facet of our life. And that is going to have some problems. But the benefit is the best content has the ability to transcend everything else.
Yeah, I totally agree, Don. And I love that the last line always be closing, like he's putting it out there. So it's like, is this really a thought discussion, or is this just a really good advert to try and hire the next gun for Eucalyptus?
Oh, speaking of always been closing, at the Sunrise conference, I went to his keynote, which was amazing. And he said something along the lines of, all of you Series A, Series B startup founders who are watching this, seeing how hard it is, we're hiring. So just don't bother and come work for us. Just like aggressively trying to get the best people in the room. And I think he actively called out, if you're at Canva or Atlassian, you're selling your soul, like something just like absolutely just come and work for a real startup that's on a trajectory. I totally agree that storytelling is just going to be the last thing that kind of really sets founders apart.
It'll be interesting how much that does change with AI and generated content and all those other things. Like as in the type of story we tell. I mean, for so long it has been things like the hero's journey have just been absolute truisms of storytelling. Will that ever change? Likely not. But I'm curious if AI will actually change the constructs in the way we communicate.
I think humans actually replying to emails versus getting a polished AI email or getting a polished AI narrative that you've memorized and actually have all that clear pause, that clear, you are articulating your thoughts as they're coming. That human connection and authenticity piece will be, I think, what connects with people. And that's just my thesis, but I think particularly in the space we're in, where we're constantly living in this world of AI. And at the end of the day, like, we enjoy the podcast ourselves because it's a time for the four of us to connect and chat and be authentic and talk about what's going on. And I think that's why people listen to our podcast, not maybe for the content, but it's more about that authentic version of who we are as people and as business.
I did have one of the founders go, it makes me feel better about my life. Is that a compliment? What's happening?
Glad we could help.
You know who you are. Storytelling, but often the medium is the message and the environment. And I must admit, I used to put a lot of effort into trying to make sure that the look and the feel was right. Just hold on a second and I'll play this little video. This guy does have Tim Doyle vibes. So just...
If you ever wanted to remove all doubt that you are indeed a massive fuckwit, do an in-car video like this. In-car videos are fantastic because they show people that you're so fucking busy that you literally couldn't wait just 5 minutes at the office to film your content or at home. And you're just such a big dog CEO that you have to do videos on the go. It's also ideal because it helps show people, they can see like a little bit of like a leather seat, so they can tell that you're a bit of a heavy hitter. You've got at least 50 grand to your name, which is always ideal. And yeah, if you're not getting the engagement that you want, just do a fucking douchebag car video. It should be sweet.
So bloody true. As someone who has done my fair share of in-car videos.
Well, the one that, at the end of the day, that's tongue-in-cheek. I do like Simon Beard's in-car videos because he actually has something good to say, but it is a bit funny the lengths people go to try and overcompensate their content. Aaron?
Exactly. No, I own it. Simon Beard actually has experience and.
But were you able to get the camera so I didn't see the booster seat, or?
No, that was part of it. I was saying, like, look what I can do, even being a dad to young kids.
No, I was talking about your own.
I was like, I thought this was an Aaron.
Oh, my pedal extensions.
You might need to cut that out, though.
No, totally leave it in. It was a phone book, I hope you know.
I saw this. I think this is true and simple and not done enough.
Oh, I thought this was a sharp segue.
Oh, speaking of which...
I thought we were already in the shots.
No, we're not going to head. Have we got a hard landing, or we can keep going for a bit?
Hard land.
I've got to take Chrissy to work in about half an hour.
No, okay. No, we'll be well and truly done.
Instead of writing the book and then hoping it does well, what you should do, take the book idea you have and then run it as a Facebook ad, run 100 different titles. And when people click on that Facebook ad, they hit a waiting list.
Yes, that's the beauty of Facebook ads. With anything that I'm launching, whether it's a book or a product or a new business, we're going to run a set of Facebook ads, probably 10, 20, 30 different variations. It's basically the Hunger Games for which ad performs better. And people don't do this sort of stuff. And this is how professionals like yourself launch businesses.
Simple, but how many times have founders launched something that they either can't communicate, nobody cares about, but actually do the marketing and go to market first, see if anybody first clicks on it, second is willing to sign up to a wait list. And if the answer is no, and people aren't willing to engage or sign up to a wait list, maybe we don't have something people care about, or maybe we've got something that's going to have a really hard go to market. It doesn't have to be Facebook. In B2B, you've got LinkedIn and other kinds of channels, but I just think that this is just not used enough.
We go, Aaron.
Yeah, I actually ran a program once for ideation, like founders that were ideating, and this is exactly what we got them to do. We got them to spin up Facebook ads and had I think it was Typeform at the time, and it even went as far as a credit card screen that wouldn't actually take payment, but they were able to tell who went to that screen. And if there was actually interest in, not just generic interest, would you buy my product, but did they click? Did they fill out personal information? And did they make it as far as going to populate a credit card? Because that was really good validation of willingness to pay before they've actually built anything.
And now the bar to build a website is so low that founders have no excuse.
Totally. Hard to build the MVP, let alone the website. Jack.
Yeah, which I was just going to chime in there and say that I think the same applies for an MVP. And I think we've got a deal in our pipeline where we're looking at the maturity of the product, and it's a lot more on the earlier stage than we originally like. But then when you flip it and you put the lens of looking at distribution and demand, we're seeing very strong signals of that. But then you're going, the product probably doesn't even do everything it says on the website, and the capability is very light. So it's just like an interesting interesting like scenario, and it's a good signal that that there is demand.
I think it's also like with the bar for MVP being so low now, you have the ability to essentially book a meeting with these early signal customers and then actually walk through the feature set that you're thinking about to even see if those are interesting. I think that's something where you're having some interested partners or clients, but partners when you actually think about it, who are willing to put their checkbook down.
Totally agree, Ash. Like a founder could listen to what we said before and say that's totally just B2C, but even enterprise, like the businesses I've built, the tech companies I've built have all started with a business customer actually writing me a check to essentially build the MVP because the problem was something that they wanted solved that badly. And I think of in our portfolio, Gasbot, what they did with their foundation customer who became a shareholder, who actually invested capital for this to be built. So I think the lesson for founders, to steal Jack's line, is if you are solving a real problem for people, go and test the demand side first, confirm that you are, and even in enterprise, if you can get some funding from your customers to build it as a validation point.
Yeah. I'm mindful of time, and I'm going to move some of those other things to next week. I guess I just wanted to play this before getting into the charts. Like I said, I spent a couple of days doing strategy this week, just helping bring some stuff together. And I just want to remind like listeners out there, when you've got like a big strategic problem that you're just caught up with, like holding off on the decision or making a decision not to make a decision, you're still actually making a decision. And just hold on.
In case you've forgotten, every choice you make costs something. When you don't actively choose, you're still making a choice. When you avoid making a decision, you've actually decided already. When you wait, hesitate, or avoid something, you're still making choices that shape your life. Playing it safe costs you growth. Taking risks costs your comfort. Doing nothing costs your dreams. When you do nothing, your possibilities quietly fade away. Every time you put something off, you lose a chance to build the life you want. Life takes something from you no matter what path you choose. Once your time is used, it's gone forever.
Well, that was beautiful.
It was, Ash. Don't worry, I'll ruin it shortly, but...
Oh, I think we should end on that.
No, but it is so true. And I played that video for a team that was just a little bit stuck. And then once we had that energy and connected with a little bit more, the harder decisions were able to just move a little bit quicker. And yeah.
You should save that. That's a good one.
It is a good one. It's a nice little one to listen to often as a reminder.
And sometimes the reason why we're holding off on a decision is fear. And in fact, when I say sometimes, I probably think almost every time. And what can sometimes hold you back is some of the stuff that Gary's talking about here.
You're scared to fail in front of people. Therapy, exercise, motivational content, the people you hang out with, whatever it takes for you to become more confident. Confidence comes from your capacity to not care about other humans' judgment. And I remind you that every other human is flawed and has shortcomings too. And so you're allowed to fail. And if they make fun of you, that means they suck. I don't know what else to tell you.
Now, I think that can be taken too far, but sometimes when I'm in conversations with people, you can tell that actually there's a judgment thing, or what will people think. You can go too far and end up just being a lunatic, but there's a sort of a middle ground. But I do find that sometimes that lack of confidence is actually allowing people to succumb to fear, which then stops them making a decision. And then you end up with this self-fulfilling prophecy situation where the thing that you're scared to occurs because of actions that you took.
It's so true. And I've got Mark Selby's voice in my head. Like building with the end in mind and backing yourself into something. One of the things you fear like that's playing out in inaction is the fear of your own incompetency. Like your own inability to actually execute and get done what needs to get done to achieve the thing. And I think that's where you, as a founder, you're constantly required to do things you've never done before, that you have never been trained to do, that you don't have competency to do, but you have to do. And the problem is, I think where a lot of founders get stuck is that fear that comes with that, especially when you have people backing you, there's other people's capital at risk, there's reputation because now you're out in the public saying what you're doing. And so it all compounds into a fear of self.
Jack, what's your perspective on this as a parallel to having grown up in an elite athlete environment? I see parallels to, obviously, when you're in that kind of high performance environment, you're being pushed to understand the limit of perfection. And so I think that drives a lot of people to continue pushing themselves forward.
Yeah, I think, Don, you put the podcast about the professional athlete coach, and it goes back to like people in the tail end who are in that 1% of the 1% of any domain. They actually look very similar. So I think if you look at like the best golfer, looks very similar to the best CEO of a tech company. And I think that applies. But just thinking of what you were saying there, Aaron, and then putting that back to sport, I actually think even though the succession rate is probably very similar to being a pro athlete versus being a pro founder, a successful founder, I think founders have a harder job only because you are constantly in that imposter syndrome of having to switch contents. Like you're almost switching sports every time because you're not just wearing one hat playing the same game. And I think what athletes are constantly having to do is level up to the same game, but it's like leveling up to the skills of the people above you, not like doing and playing a totally different game. And that's where that imposter syndrome is just so strong for founders.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's that context shifting when you're a founder of a business. The list is what, 50 things you got to switch between and do at that threshold level.
Yeah. And like, I think like I didn't get to elite, but like I can think like just trying to put consider where I was in imposter syndrome. And I think like, right, you're playing subby rugby, but now you're going to play like semi-professional. And like, you've got imposter syndrome, but it's just like, right, you know how to play the game. But then I think of doing law, never doing a business class or an accounting and finance class, and then jumping in as an analyst, and just how shy and awkward and just didn't feel like I didn't deserve the role, if that makes sense. And like, I think like there are so many similarities, but then it's also so different.
See, this is why I asked you the question, Jack.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a good perspective. I'm mindful of time, so let's just jump into some charts, and not all of them made it in this week, I've just realized. Anyway, this for listeners at home, going back to May 1, 2023, this is the time spent on ChatGPT for the average user, and it's up 200%. Like, it is just getting longer and longer. And on a podcast I was listening to today, that ChatGPT, just as a reminder, is the fastest addition of users in history, 800 million in 18 months. So not only is the user growth growing exponentially, the time on there. Now, what's the biggest input into AI, at least at the moment, outside of the programming time? It's electricity. Have a look at so for those at home, this is the measured terawatt hours. And it just has US and China. US going back to 2000, it's what, up 5% maybe? And China up and to the right, and it's nearly at 9,000. So it's more than twice what the US is at the moment, but it's growing exponentially. And I'd hate to even...
Surely that's not just AI though, Don. Like they've had an electrification.
No, 100%. But they've got a political system. Yeah. They've got a economic system that allows them to do a range of things. And what's the infrastructure required for mass AI? Electricity. And I'd hate to see what Australia is. We wouldn't even rate her. I know I had a crack at Sam Altman earlier, but Sam visited a orphanage last week. It's heartbreaking to look into those sad, hopeless eyes, said one of the kids.
Jeez.
That is true. I think he's a psychopath, but anyway. But ChatGPT has just been made a public utility by Dubai. And I think, Ash, you said that someone else was looking at it, but every citizen in Dubai is now getting premium ChatGPT. So it's the first to formalize the cognitive capacity as a public good. Yeah.
But yeah, when I saw that, Ash, the first thought was, that's why Ash actually wants to move there. It's not for the tax reasons. It's for the free GP.
And then what next? You get free GPT, then you're going to get a robot. Like it's...
Yeah.
Honestly, they are looking to do what they've done in the last 20 years again in the next 5. So
yeah, it's going to be crazy. This is
the incentive there, right? If you're an AI founder, so you're not paying for compute and you're also not paying tax, like that's pretty compelling.
say less.
Totally compelling.
Tribe Global Ventures Dubai office. Ash speaking. This is slightly random, but this is the unsold houses that is creeping up and to the right in the US. So it hit a low in 21, as you would imagine, but she's actually continues to creep up. This is the highest stock of unsold houses going back to the GFC. Now, it's not as bad as the GFC, but it's still up and to the right. This is, remind me what this is. This is the incidence of speech therapy recourse, i.e., the incidence of children based on their month born that are sent to speech therapy. And what the study showed is that as kids are born later in the year, there's a higher incidence to send them to speech therapy later in their life. But what the article just points out is that a kid born in January is very different to a kid born in December.
Hold on. Is this Australian data?
Oh, fucked if I know, Ash.
Then that thesis doesn't work.
Why?
Because
no, this is US.
You don't.
This is US.
But yeah, even if we say it's Australia or what, like that, this actually correlates to the book Outliers.
Yeah.
And they're talking about how, like, when you go, people born at the start of the year have a better shot because in the early, at the early stage of their life, they have more time to develop the skills.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Sure.
This was an interesting one that I shared with a couple of people. This is a study that was released in the US. The distance from your nearest golf course and the odds of getting Parkinson's disease. The closer you are to a golf course, the higher the odds of developing Parkinson's. And do we know why that is? It's the pesticides and the insecticides and everything that they use on there, because in a lot of places in the US, they use the groundwater as their drinking water, which is why there's often a lot of issues with fracking. And so the study released, and it's quite an interesting one. You'd quite like it, Ash. It's this multi-year, tens of thousands of people study that they plotted this. And it's quite...
That's fascinating because golf itself is meant to be very good to prevent Parkinson's.
Yeah. But what the golf course is doing, that's then leaching into the water,
fascinating. That's a good one.
Very good. I saw this one for those at home. It's a barren area where all of the trees are cut down and there's no trees. And there's two people pointing at the koala going, that koala's got a mental health problem. And I just chuckle at that, is that because people are a product of their environment, and often you look at that little koala saying it's all stressed out and whatever else. What the fuck do you expect? You cut down its tree. Speaking of imposter syndrome, here's a chart, Jack. Imposter syndrome. There's 2 bars for the people at home. How much you actually know and how much you think you know. And for people that tend to not think that they know much, they actually tend to know a lot more. That's probably the most basic one I've ever put up. But anyway. So this one didn't make it in, but I'll just put in there. Whoever invented marriage was creepy as hell. Like, I love you so much, I want to get the government involved so you can't leave. I thought that's fairly true.
To be fair, that is like my standing point on divorce and like prenups. Like, if you don't put a prenup in place, you're letting the government pick your prenup.
Interesting.
And I also have a correlation to health insurance. Like, you don't actively want to have health insurance because you think you're going to get sick, but you still pay for it. It's like, why wouldn't you have insurance?
Absolute bundle of fun.
Ash, you need your own podcast.
Now, finally, did you know that William Shatner once tried to start his own line of lingerie? Unfortunately for him, Shatner Pants was a terrible brand name.
I was literally going to ask, who is this person? So
you don't know who William Shatner is?
No.
Ah, man, I feel
Shat
old.
in your pants.
Do you know who that is, Jack?
No.
Oh, come
on, you guys knew. Come on.
I don't know who William Shatner
I
is.
was like, okay, is this like an actual person, or is Don just like trying to be funny here?
Fuck. Okay, I give up.
But I enjoyed the evolution of Charles Don. I like where we're going with this.
Yeah, that's slightly better.
Could you explain where we're going? Just so I
Just
understand.
finishing without a shot. It was Don just reading some some one-liners.
Don's story time.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, that was much better. Some graphs, some actual statistics
I
behind.
don't have any others for you, Jack, now that I go through. It's to say, Tinder is for rookies. Go to Facebook Marketplace and search for wedding dresses. It'll show you all the recently divorced women. From there, you can filter.
Actually, not bad.
It's probably a good strategy.
On that,
because it also weeds out the ones that set fire to their wedding dresses. So
I'm sorry, is that a scar we need to unwrap?
not personal.
That was a quick recall.
We've run out of time, but Tribe Global Ventures now owns a company called Tribe. No, it's not a company. It's an entity called Tribe Global Records. And the first under Tribe Global Records was Tribe Global Beats. My sister-in-law, and I think it's because I must have shared something, but she was driving in the car and her Spotify playlist put on, if you don't think you're fucked by AI, you're an idiot, the R&B version.
No,
I shit you not.
I do not believe.
I will send you the screenshot.
It's live.
It's live.
Did we get royalties?
Yeah, so I've set it all up, all properly, that then has a whole royalty system. And so what happens is, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or Spotify,
Do you know what's going to happen? We like you have domain trolls. People are going to have AI music trolls. Just trying to.
When it gets used, like you got to have a certain volume, but if it gets used by someone else as part of an advertising thing, you get a kickback.
Just put it as like background music on every reel you post for us on Instagram, and just turn the volume
But I
down.
think what's going to happen is that soon the majority of stuff out there is going to be AI driven. At some point, it's just going to spool itself up. And then all it'll be doing is then working out like exactly what people engage with. And I think we're going to end up with music that is so narrow because it's a clickbait machine. That's my theory anyway, but I could.
Yeah. I totally see that happening. Popgun AI, that Adam Hibble was trying to make AI that made a number one song. What do you call it? Number one chart-topping song.
What's that one that's like that's a drinking game? Is it a Japanese drinking game? Jack, come on, surely.
I don't know. I'm too busy watching William Shatner. I don't know what you're referring to.
I'll send it in the chat. Oh, this is definitely time to.
I can't believe it's Friday. For some reason, I think it's like a Wednesday, and I've got multiple days to still do this week's work. And no, tomorrow I'm flying to the UK, apparently.
You do have 18 hours on a plane to do work.
Yeah, I've just written a massive list. I literally take off in, I don't know, 8 hours, something. And I've got 3 kids' sports games and 1 to get to work.
Don, I got a question for you for the flight. Will you raw dog the flight to the UK?
You might want to stop recording.
Nah, all it is, it just made me laugh. I think it was on TikTok. So it's just like doing the whole flight with no entertainment, food. I don't even know about sleep, but it's just doing its rounds.
You just sit there.
You just sit there with no headphones, no snacks, food.
Why would you do that?
It's like Putty in Seinfeld, just staring at the back of the seat.
Nah, Jack, and
Don has work to do. What are you talking
Qantas
about?
is so arrogant. For a start, there's no internet, which is fine. I've got plenty of stuff that doesn't need that. But then they'll send you an email. So like, for $7,500, you can upgrade your flight. And it's like, emerging manager. I ain't got any of that. And why would you even remind?
Their CRM is not pulling in some good
Why
data.
would you remind me that there is even a business class?
I haven't got points upgrade yet. Don't think it's going to happen.
But the problem is my flights are code share with Emirates, and you can't do.
No, but I mean for the one coming back.
Oh, don't you love that? Because we're on the same flight, and if you get it and I don't.
Do either of you have checked luggage?
I do. I have a whole suitcase of swag.
Oh, he's changed.
Yeah, I don't. But in Aaron's defence, in this instance, he needs to do the check-in. I don't have a problem with that. The challenge that I have with Aaron with his travel things is we go to Sydney for the night, and bang, we got to check in some luggage.
It's the booster seat, Don.
It's the heels on the RMs. They set off the security. I've got to check them in.
Okay, I know that's false, but
All right.
all right.
I'm going to get some work done and then
Yes.
get home.
If you can please just review the workflow I sent you. And Jack, I have sent you a link to a more detailed document to review, assuming that Aaron and Don.
Who are those instructions to? Was I included?
Yes.
Yeah, it's up.
Oh, sorry, I haven't even got there yet. All right, so there's some stuff there that cool.
Just you literally need to spend like maybe 2 minutes at max.
Done.
I just need to go current workflow, so portfolio updates. Are you happy with proposed new workflow? And then I've got the rest.
On the basis of our discussion, as long as it matches that, I have a feeling that we might actually even get excited to do those because there'll be value add for us, value add to the shareholders, and value add back to the portfolio rather than just being an admin thing. So I'm looking forward to getting that out, Ash. So thank you for your work on that.
Don, could I also get you to just sign a few DocuSigns when you're at the airport?
All right, buddy.
And then Aaron, I've still got a little bit to work on, but I'm going to send you it before your flights. So still on track.
Jack, have you done it in a Google Doc?
I need it offline for the flight anyway.
No, Aaron, you can make Google Docs offline. Absolutely. No.
No, I'll be downloading as a Word doc anyway for the flight. Because I will.
Offline.
If I use Google Docs offline,
Yes, you
it's
can.
not right.
Oh my God.
I'll be doing it in a Word doc on the plane.
Absolutely hurt me.
I'll board about 1. So you got his time, Jack.
Yeah, cool. Nah, cheers, Aaron.
Hey, Jack, I've got a bow.
Have fun, sis.